Thank you all for coming out tonight. First off, hands up. Who is here for their first ever in-person ISSessions session? Let me put my hand up as well. All right, that is crazy. First one since what, March 2020? They were doing CTF prep? If only they knew. If only they knew. All right, so welcome back to everybody who has been with us before, and of course, welcome to everybody coming out to their first ISSessions session. Another show of hands, who here is in their first or second year? All right, this entire side of the room, they all congregated. Good to see our promo didn't go to waste there. Right, so if I can address you guys for just a sec here, you're going to see and hear some words, terminologies, acronyms. There's a lot of acronyms that will go over your head, you won't know, and my advice for you is to trust the process. You know, give yourself a chance to learn, all right? You're not going to come in here and know everything already. Our team, our speakers, they're going to do their best to make it digestible for you. What you should do is give yourself a chance. If there's something you don't know, feel free to ask a question, all right? One of the goals here with ISSessions is to help students learn, and if that's your goal as well, all I can say is you've started off on the right foot by coming out here tonight. So once again, thank you for coming out. I hope to see you at the second session. So let's talk about this session, all right? So after this kickoff, we're going to be getting into our news roundup as well as our news discussion. We'll be getting you guys involved. You even get to use this mic that we found in the drawer here at Sheridan College. After that, we'll be moving into ISS Jeopardy, which, if you're wondering what that is, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a ton of fun. And after a short break, we'll be joined by John Simpson, graduate of the program, security researcher, and he'll be basically giving you a rundown on the entire field of cybersecurity, what you can expect, and how you can thrive. So just one last thing I want to check. We're going to crank the volume up for you YouTube folks here. Also, if you're joining through us via the World Wide Web, thank you. We still love you. Know this setup is mostly a work in progress. We'll be working hard to make sure the stream setup improves. We'll look into trying to get a camera so you can truly see what's going on. Right, so before we get started with the news, I would like to give you guys sort of a rundown on who's going to be working to make ISSessions happen this year. I actually don't even think I introduced myself. We're all learning here. My name's Jack. I will be the club president for this year of ISSessions. Joining me on the support team, we got Christian, who is our vice president, and we got Mason, who's taking on community manager as well as producer for us. The support team basically are people who don't really fit into the next two teams. They, I guess, support the club. Moving into our content team, this team is led by Jackson. He's our event manager. He works to coordinate. Thank you, John. That's that experience right there. He's a veteran with this. All right, where was I? Jackson, our event manager. He's working to coordinate the event. Working with Jackson on the content team. We have our content developers working to make the content for you. We got Jackson, not to be confused with Jackson. We got Jess over there. We got Nero. We got Patrick. We got Singh, and we got Tommy. These guys, they're working on meetings like you're seeing right now, as well as our workshops. Then our CTF team, it's led by Sean, somewhere over there. You moved. He's our CTF coordinator. He's handling logistics, hassling sponsors, the whole shebang. We got Chris. Is Chris here? Yes, sir. He's managing the challenge development. Working with Chris, we got our challenge devs. We got Blake. We got Edward. We got Kyle. There's too many guys. I can't keep looking around. We got Mark. We got Reed. And we got Shaquille. And what would a CTF be without our CTF infrastructure dev, Vlad, our own crazy Russian hacker? These guys will be working to make that CTF for you guys. More announcements on the CTF when there's more things to announce. So that is the ISSessions executive team. And now we can finally get into the meeting with our news roundup. Jackson with a Y. Get up here.
Thank you, Jack. So I am the second Jackson, of course. And so today my news article will be regarding ransomware for a Los Angeles school. So the Los Angeles Unified School District, or LAUSD, has confirmed it was hit by a ransomware attack that is causing ongoing technical disruptions. Vice Society, a Russian-speaking ransomware group and known for targeting the education sector, claimed responsibility for the LAUSD ransomware attack. Vice Society is a double extortion ransomware group, meaning it typically exfiltrates a victim's sensitive data as well as encrypting it. The group broke into the victim's network by exploiting the Windows Print Nightmare vulnerability. Vice Society was a known group by both the FBI and CISA to explicitly target the education sector with ransomware attacks. Brett Cowan, a ransomware expert and threat analysis at ISSessions, states that Los Angeles Unified School District is the 15th education sector entity to be hit with ransomware this year alone. After the attack, students and teachers were unable to access email, Google Drive, Schoology, a popular learning management system. LAUSD stated that it's expediting the rollout of multi-factor authentication across the district after this incident. Earlier this week, reports emerged that at least 23 login credentials of LAUSD employees appeared on the dark web. The credentials reportedly contain email addresses and passwords, and at least one set of credentials is said to have unlocked an account for the district's virtual private network service. LAUSD was the target of a previous ransomware attack in 2021, according to threat intelligence company Hold Security. According to the company, a school psychiatrist machine was infected with TrickBot, a financially motivated malware that is sometimes used as a precursor to a ransomware attack. And I'm going to pass it on to my colleague Singh for the next article.
So my name is actually Jess. It's okay. It's okay. Mistakes happen. Okay.
Yeah. Now I know.
Okay, so this next article is actually related to the iOS. So iOS 16 is coming out and has two new security features for worst-case scenarios. So as governments and other entities worldwide increasingly purchase more powerful spyware to target individuals, iOS's general security defenses have not been able to keep pace with these sorts of threats. So Apple decided to come out with lockdown mode and safety check, which was introduced as part of Apple's security model. In general, iOS is already locked down and can't be monitored in the same way that other operating systems can be. So think of like Windows. The protective tools are for end user security. So safety check, which is one of the security measures, can actually prevent other people from accessing their location information. It has a emergency reset feature that revokes access all at once. It resets privacy permissions, signs you out of iCloud on all other devices, and limits where your account can send and receive texts through messages. The other mode that's introduced with this is also called lockdown mode. It's meant for high-profile individuals, and it actually limits the device's activity and reduces the attack surface greatly by blocking contact from unknown people, disabling browser features, and more. And the next person for the article is Neryl.
So this next story comes from ZDNet, and it's about a new form of malware dubbed Shikatega by cybersecurity researchers at AT&T Alien Labs, and it's targeting endpoints and IoT devices running Linux. So the initial method of infection is unknown. However, once a device does become infected, the payload is delivered through a multi-stage infection chain. Parts of the payload are downloaded gradually in modules as small as a few hundred bytes. The small size of these modules and the use of a polymorphic encoder to encrypt its code make it difficult for antivirus software to detect the malware. The attackers behind Shikatega appear to use legitimate cloud services to host some of their command and control, or C2 servers, which are used to send commands to infected computers. As more modules are downloaded, they contain tools that attackers can use to gain full control of the system, for example, taking control of webcams, taking control of processes, and executing shell commands. One of these tools is Metal, an offensive security tool from Metasploit. In other cases, they exploit known vulnerabilities in Linux systems that allow them to elevate their privileges to root. Once they have root privileges, the final stage of the attack is to download crypto mining malware onto the device. However, with the amount of control Shikatega is able to gain over the systems it infects, these attacks could be more destructive in the future.
Hello, I'm Patrick. I'm going to be talking about how NATO documents were stolen from Portugal and being sold on the dark web. A cyber attack at Portugal's Armed Forces General Staff, EMGFA, that allegedly resulted in the theft of confidential NATO papers, which are currently being sold on the dark web. After hackers put samples of the stolen data on the dark web and advertised the files for sale to interested parties, the agency finally learned that they had been victim of a cyber attack. The victims of the stolen records was discovered by American cyber intelligence operatives who were notified the American embassy in Limassol, which then informed the Portugal's authorities of the data breach. A team of specialists from the National Security Office, GNS, and Portugal's National Cybersecurity Center was sent right away to EMGFA to conduct a thorough audit of the organization's entire network. The news outlet Diario de Nes was informed of these individuals that the papers were of extreme gravity, that their release may damage the nation's reputation and the military's alliance. According to one of the DN sources, it was a cyber attack prolonged in time and inductible through the bots program to detect this type of document, which then later removed in several stages. The EMGFA's computers are air-gapped. However, regular insurance lines were utilized for this infiltration. As a result, the investigation's initial findings that the highest military authority has at some point violated operational security guidelines. As a result, Marcos Pestrolo, the head of the Parliamentary Defenses Committee, to intervene to the hearing of the event could be said as quickly as possible. The Portuguese government has yet to make an official remark of the matter, but in light of DA's disclosures, the political opposition demand for a briefing is growing.
Hi everyone, I'm Singh. Quick show of hands, how many people have a Samsung device or a Samsung account? You might want to check your emails. So Samsung was hacked back in July, late July, but they only publicly disclosed back just recently in September about the hack. An unauthorized party acquired information from the US systems. I guess it might not be applicable to Canada. They engaged a leading outside cybersecurity firm and law enforcement to do the research. Information such as names, contact, demographic information, date of birth, and product registration information was disclosed, but they assured that social security, debit, and credit card info wasn't stolen. So if that's not important to you, then no big deal, I guess. They were actively notifying customers about awareness, and it might affect different people differently. But they also informed the customers that no action was necessary. So Samsung actually was aware of the potential issue back in March when Lapsus claimed, the collective, hacker collective Lapsus claimed that it had the source code for activation servers and algorithms connected to biometric operations. And at the time, Samsung actually downplayed the incident, anticipating no impact, but obviously they were wrong. Yeah, so it allegedly involved the operation of Galaxy devices and Samsung's, which is obviously Samsung's flagship brand of mobile devices. And gonna pass it over to Tom.
Hey guys, so I'm going to be talking about a new phishing service that's allowing criminals to, take all your information. So this is a phishing as service toolkit, and it's called Evil Proxy, and it's being advertised in the criminal underground as a means for threat actors to bypass two-factor authentication protections employed against online services. Evil Proxy generates cloned phishing links of popular websites for victims to click on and enter their personal information. Evil Proxy is similar to adversary in the middle attacks in that users interact with a malicious proxy server that acts as a go-between for the target website, covertly harvesting the credentials and two-factor authentication passcodes entered on the login pages. Evil Proxy is being offered as a subscription-based service for $400 a month that can go as high as $600 a month for attacks against Google, in case any of you guys are interested in getting some of that. And Evil Proxy is worrying as it indicates threat actors are upgrading their attack arsenal to bypass existing security safeguards. And adding to the concern, public-facing code and package repositories such as GitHub are being targeted, which suggests threat actors are aiming to facilitate supply chain attacks through these attacks. It is also highly likely that these threat actors will aim to target software developers and IT engineers to gain access to repositories and downstream targets. I'll hand it back off to Jack here.
All right. Thank you, content team, for delivering the stories. And now here's the part where you guys are going to get involved here. It's now time for the discussion part of the news discussion. So here's how it's going to work. One of our team members is going to come up here, give you the rundown on a cybersecurity story. Then that exec will give you a prompt. You're either going to agree or disagree with it. Here's the important part. You're going to discuss it. So don't be afraid to share your thoughts and get to use this mic. So I'm going to hand it off to Singh. Get back up here. And we'll get started with the discussion.
Okay, so I'm going to be starting with the discussion here about working from home. So quick show of hands, how many people enjoyed studying at home the last couple of years? So about like half of the people. So there was a poll done recently by a research firm that found that most satisfied cybersecurity professionals were those who were able to choose where they work, and the least satisfied were those who were forced back into the office. No surprise there, right? Previously, they found that if given a choice to work remotely, about 87% of people decided to take it. Companies like Apple did reluctantly remove a requirement to go back into the office, and they, obviously because of the backlash, they decided to give people the option to work remotely. We see here that a majority of those previously in the office, from a range of sometimes to full-time, job satisfaction increased when they were offered remote work. 47% of those who used to work fully remote at home, but now were forced to work in the office, had a decreased satisfaction. Again, no surprise. The number of cybersecurity professionals working fully remote decreased from 44% in 2021 down to 33% in 2022, obviously because people were forced to go back into the office. Some respondents did disclose that they would look for a new job if they were forced to go back into the office full time, and about half of them said that they wouldn't do so. Most people did feel security in their jobs. They felt sure that they weren't going to be replaced by someone somewhere far away. And some do prefer to work in the office due to certain reasons like social interaction, work-life delineation, leave work at work, leave home life at home, and a few other things like quieter environments and access to the office. Research has also shown that work from home is equally, but also sometimes more productive than fully in-office work. So the prompt today is, in the context of cybersecurity, Does having mandatory in office make more sense than remote work? How do you guys feel?
All right, one at a time, folks. We got somebody over here.
I think it would depend on the field you're in, like, the actual requirement. If it's possible to do, in person, like, working from home, they should be able to do it, but for some certain consequences, it should be mandatory to do, in the office,
Depending on.
depending on, like, what type of job you have in cybersecurity.
All right, thank you, leading the charge. And for this person.
So I would say it is a very personal choice. It's far preferred, say, you live in the suburbs, and you commute, hour and a half, 2 hours each direction every day to an office in downtown Toronto. That's 4 hours of your life every day. If the GO train's being bad, it's more than that, right? So there's a lot of downsides to it, but there are certainly going to be a significant number of people where working from home isn't the ideal environment for them, whether it's they need more social interaction, they need more of that like face time, or their environment just isn't really that productive for them. A lot of distractions, maybe they don't have, as was I mentioned in the study, maybe they don't have that separation between, that to be able to have a separate workspace, so it's just noise in the place that I work. So that's less than ideal. From a pure like cybersecurity perspective, there are very, very few jobs in our industry that really, truly require in person. There's maybe a small handful of jobs where it's, if you're doing, for example, working with industrial control systems where there is no external network access to these things, you have to be on site for that yourself. But outside of those types of things, really, we do not need to be in an office. And anyone who tells you otherwise is
Alright, thank you, John. Does anybody else have some other thoughts? Or are we ready to move on to the next prompt? Chris.
It's okay. So hey, I'm Pablo, former InfoSec. I agree with what John said. I think it really depends on who you are, and depends on what kind of scenario. But I know personally for my end, I'm hybrid right now with my co-op. But I know some days in the office I'll get like a ton of work done, but then I'll get really bored of just sitting in the same chair, in the same office, doing nothing at like what I can do. Where if I was at home, if I want to take a break, I can go walk my dog, I can go just like go downstairs, go to the kitchen, talk to my siblings. Where at work, it wouldn't be like the same. Yes, I talk to my coworkers, they don't. But being at home also gives me that little like, alright, I'm by myself. I can not be as stressed having someone looking over me the entire time. But at the same time, I've also worked from home and I'm like, I can't get shit done. I'm getting distracted, my friends are online. I want to go play games or go outside with my friends. So again, like, it depends on who you are and what kind of work ethic you have. But whether it be mandatory, I think it should be an option, especially like John said, like, we are very lucky that our industry, we can work from home, like, we can work from home, because that's just the career we all chose. And especially like with the pandemic where everyone was remote, a lot of the people that weren't very tech savvy kind of struggled with that aspect, because a lot of companies or a lot of people like being in person, like doing their job with other people that are doing the same thing. But for us, most of us like staying up at night, having that antisocial, on your own little dark web, working on your own. So I wouldn't say mandatory, but I would definitely say it's an option. And that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Hey everybody. So I think that mandatory might be a strong word here. I don't think it should be mandatory at all because I mean, life gets in the way, right? And we need a little bit of balance. We need a little bit of flexibility to be able to, I don't know, for some people it's raising a family, or for some people it's, taking care of their dog, or, work on a renovation that's happening. There's so many
So I'm the other Jackson, but the like first one. Yeah, sure. We'll go with that. So yeah. So the news story I chose to talk about today was about China looking to increase the penalties under its cybersecurity laws. So China has this organization called the CAC, or the Cyberspace Administration of China. And they proposed a few amendments to the country's cybersecurity laws, which mostly include increasing the punishments. So this includes financial penalties for operators of critical information infrastructure that are using products that have not undergone security reviews. So if your products haven't been reviewed, like to make sure they're fully secure and that they're being used in a fully secure way, you could be fined. Well, that's already the case, but they are talking about increasing the fine by a lot. So the fines could now be equivalent to 5% of the previous year's revenue for the whole company, or 10 times the amount that was paid for the product. So if you can imagine some of these products and some of these things you might be working with, that could cost a lot. It would also raise fines for other violations from a maximum of 100,000 yuan to 1 million. So that's another pretty big jump. So just as like a little context to what's going on in China with these kind of violations. So a ride-hailing company called Didi Global had in July violated 3 major laws such as this, and they were fined basically the equivalent of $1.2 billion US by the CAC. And China put out basically an open forum. So they're getting a bunch of public opinion on these changes to see whether people are actually okay with this. So I thought like, hey, they're getting people to see if they're okay with this. Let's see if you guys are okay with this. So that kind of leads, I believe that thing might have ended already, the public forum, but sometime middle of September. So my prompt is, whether you agree or disagree, let me know. Fines are an effective way to ensure companies follow cybersecurity regulations, or they're like the best way. I can run around.
Sure.
Okay, anyone?
Yep. Thank you. Hello? I mean, I could just speak to the room too, if that's better. That's better. Yeah?
Well, if you speak to the mic, they can hear it online.
Oh, shit, okay, sorry about that. So, yeah, I just want to get a cursory perspective at the, to answer the question here. I think fines are an effective way to motivate anybody as an individual, especially people who are responsible for their own financial situations, all more so in a corporate perspective, because your bottom line is going to be your R&R, that being revenue. So just, yeah, I have to agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say exactly because, I mean, we see this in a lot of other industries, especially for very large companies. You know, if fines exist at some point, they just consider it like the cost of making a product, right? And if the fine isn't high enough, and it's actually, if the fine is less expensive than paying somebody to secure your product, people are just going to pay the fine. So, like, we see this a lot in other industries as well. So, kind of, it depends. I couldn't really speak to the exact numbers that they're proposing, but it definitely is a big problem.
My thinking was kind of similar to that. So I was thinking like, if you're gonna fine someone for not doing something, then they're gonna do the bare minimum not to get that fine. Because they're gonna see, okay, if we do more than this, that's costing us more, but if we do less than this, it's costing us more. So we're just gonna do that like fine line in the middle where we don't get fined. Pun not intended.
Where do you think ultra cheap pen tests came from?
True.
Right?
Yeah.
Ron Nessus got a check mark?
Does anyone else have anything they want to say before we move on to Jeopardy? So next we're going to be doing a little segment we've done a lot called ISS Jeopardy. So we're going to be doing a little game basically where you're going to have to use your phones for this on the Discord. If everyone's in the Discord, let us know. I assume you are. That's how we told you how to get here.
If you aren't in the Discord, let me know.
Yeah, if you're not, let Jack know. He'll get you in. Yeah. So if you've ever heard of Jeopardy in real life, it's pretty similar. It's pretty much the same concept, pretty universal.
Where do we play on our phone? I know it's on the server, but what? Is it like a
Stream questions, yes. And I'm just about to explain the wonderful bot that we use. Our Vice President Christian worked on it. I believe Nash did too, present last year. And yeah, wait. Is it a different? I have to change the slideshow.
I got you.
Just open up Discord while you're waiting.
Back yourself out.
Okay, awesome. So, just making sure it's there. So ISS Jeopardy. So just like Jeopardy, we have a grid of a bunch of categories with 5 questions each, and each of them have a different amount of points. And yeah, based on the points, it's a different difficulty. Each question has a point value measured in dollars. The higher the point value, the more difficult the question is. Disclaimer, you will not actually be paid. We don't have money for that. We're not making money off of this. So the first question will be chosen by the host, which is me. Yay.
Just 1 sec.
After that, the person who answered the previous question correctly will choose the prompt. And a buzzer will be available in the stream questions chat by doing the command !buzz. In stream questions. And after the first person buzzes, there will be a 5-second grace period for other people to join. The order will then be selected randomly. So we'll get a nice little list in the Discord server, and it'll say, hey, it's this person's turn. If any question is answered incorrectly, the next person on the list will be selected to answer the question, and if nobody gets it, I get to choose. So get some questions wrong, please. Does anyone have any questions before we start? If anyone's just on Discord or YouTube, they can just buzz and then afterwards say their answer. But if you're here, you can obviously just say your answer. Does that make sense? Awesome. Okay, yeah, so here is our little board. So we have networking, coding, hacker history, hacker pop culture, exploits, miscellaneous, and operating systems. So you know what? I get to choose. Let's start with miscellaneous for 100. So this household name is the largest tech company in South Korea and one of the largest in the world. Check the Discord. So yes, feel free to buzz in right now. People have already started. Awesome. Okay, Kyle, let us know. You're right. I was gonna run over to you. I mean, you saved me a trip. Samsung, awesome. Okay, good job. Not used to holding the mic. Okay, good job, Kyle. Now, which question do you want to answer next? Or put that wrong. Exploits for 100. So what is it called when an exploit is unknown to the vendor and hasn't been exploited by a hacker? So feel free to buzz in. Okay, first is Connor.
So I think the answer you're looking for is a zero-day exploit.
That is the answer I'm looking for.
But this is not the right definition of a zero-day exploit. It's just when an exploit is unknown to the vendor. It's not lost. It could have been Jackson, that's okay. We don't play. That's enough.
Okay,
sorry.
I could get into this debate.
Don't censor the people.
I was trying to give as much information as I could. It was a 100-point question. Okay, yeah. So it is a 0 day.
Nice.
So Connor, which question would you like next?
Exploits 200.
Okay. Back to present again. So what kind of exploit is used to gain elevated access you are not authorized to have? Anyone buzz in? Okay, we got one.
I think privilege escalation?
Privilege escalation is correct. So we got 100, 100, 200 right now for points. So it is privilege escalation. So which question would you like to answer next? Well,
I can't read anything.
Okay. So, the number of games in the Watchdog series related to hacking. Yes. Everyone buzz if you think you know. I mean, it's a number. It can't be that high, right? Just guess. Waiting for the bot. Okay, Syed. Where's Syed? Okay, Syed. Which one do you think? Oh, he's looking it up. 3? I think so. It is 3. Good job. How am I going to police it? I'm not wearing a suit either. Okay, Syed. Which question would you like next? Okay, pick a category and point number.
Networking 400.
Networking 400, very specific. Interesting. So this network is known as a blank topology. Oh yeah, I keep expecting people to put their hands up. Done. Buzz if you think you know. Gotta go quick, there's like a 5-second period. Don't miss your chance. You don't want to be the one who buzzes like last, and then they're not on the list. Okay, blank again, I swear it's not right. That is actually incorrect. I actually have a slideshow open on my phone. Okay, next on the list is Syed again. What do you think?
I think it's a mesh.
That is a mesh topology, correct. Okay, so again, which question would you like to be answered next?
Hacker history.
Which one?
300.
300? Nice, middle of the board. Sorry. So this malware is responsible for disabling 1,000 nuclear centrifuges in Iran, one of the first known state-sponsored weaponized malware attacks. Feel free to buzz in whenever you can. We can't have the Jeopardy music, so maybe I'll do it myself. Okay, we have our list, and first is Thraki. Stuxnet, that is correct. Awesome, for 300. So while I am highlighting it, which question would you like next?
Let's do the hacker pop culture for 5 minutes.
Nice, all the way. So, for 500 points, the name of the hacker-themed TV show, which was from the 1995 movie Hackers. Very original name. Feel free to buzz in whenever you can type the command in. Okay, we got 2. Mason, what do you think the answer is?
Hack the planet.
Hack the planet. I believe that's correct. Hack the planet is correct for 500. So Mason, which one is next?
Let's do hacker pop culture 300.
Sorry, for how much?
300.
300? In 2022, Cyberpunk 2077 was released, and you can use what type of hacking to hack into network-related objects? I never played this game. So yeah, I guess we only have one. It's Jack. What do you think the answer is, Mr. President?
I don't know.
Yeah. A breach.
A breach hack?
Yeah.
What type of hacking?
Pretty vague. Okay, so no one got the question right, so that means I get to choose. Let's do hacker history for 400. So it's an individual who leaked NSA information in 2013. Okay, we actually got 5 people buzzed this time. I swear it's not rigged. It should be random. It should be fully random. But Blake, Edward Snowden is correct for 400 points. That's a pretty famous one. So I feel like I've asked you this a lot, but Blake, which question? It's networking, coding, hacker history, hacker pop culture, exploits, miscellaneous, and operating systems. 300 on operating systems, nice. I'll shoot slideshow. So which Linux distro is this? Everyone buzzing if you know. I feel like a lot of people will, based on the room. Okay, buzzing while you can. Remember, it's randomized. It's not first come, first serve. So, okay, Krishna. Okay. It is indeed Kali Linux. Kali Linux, yes, for 300. Nice. So, which question would you like to answer next? Nice. Okay, it's not all red, but it's okay. Coding for 300? 4? Nice. So what is another name for a hash table / map in Python? Do we teach Python in the program now? I don't know if that changed. Should. Okay, we got 2. Edward.
Is it dictionary?
Dictionary? I believe that's correct, yes. Oh, I was wrong. Wait. Wait. That is the wrong link. We might have had a little bit. Give me a second, guys. You are right. The link was wrong.
Yeah?
Yeah. I don't know how that happened. I apologize. There's a lot of slides. There's a lot of links. Sorry about that. Okay, what question is next?
Miscellaneous, 500.
Miscellaneous for 500. Nice.
No, miscellaneous.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. My bad. Okay. This is a little history. So the assassination of this heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire was the most immediate cause of World War II, or World War I. My bad. It's all random. It's history. Okay, we have some people who think they know it, I guess. Okay, I swear it's not rigged. It's just the same people somehow winning the over and over again. Syed? What's the name? Do you know his first name? I'll take it. I'll take it. It was Franz Ferdinand. That's not his first name. That's his title. It's like saying Jack's first name is President. I'll take it though. That's close enough.
Would you call like Joe Biden to be like, hey Joe? No, you'd be like, hello President Biden.
True. But I'm sure there were a few people who were archdukes whose last name was Ferdinand. Okay, Syed, what is our next question? Coding for 200? 300, nice.
We already have the answers.
We do, okay, yes. Good catch, people, thanks. So we already got the answer for that one, so can you choose a different one, please?
Hacker history 100.
Hacker history for 100. So considered to be one of the largest data breaches in history in 2013, with 3 billion accounts exposed, what company was affected? Yeah. Some of it you just have to know it, right? Like, it just depends on what you know. This might be one of our last questions, just because we're running out of time. Okay, I swear, this shouldn't be rigged. This shouldn't be rigged. But Blake. Yahoo hacked from the guy in Hamilton. Let me just check to make sure. You're right, it's Yahoo. Blake, last question. Which one should we answer? So want me to read it again? Operating systems for 500. Let's see. So this is the default file system for Windows 8, 8.1, 10, and 11. People buzz in if you can hear. People were buzzing in before I even finished. Okay, someone else has struck the buzzer, so I guess buzz again. It didn't show up last time, so we're giving it another try. Okay, Hoji. Hoji is virtual. NTFS. NTFS is correct, which is New Technology File System. Yeah. So that's all the time we have for today. Oh yeah. I was kind of keeping points in my head, but then.
Is anyone keeping track?
You are all winners. Just for coming. Yeah. On our side, got a few. Blake got a few.
But Blake was cheating.
It's not cheating if it's OSINT. That's the rule here at ISS. All right. Thank you all for participating in the first two segments of our meeting tonight. Before, we are joined by John to present his final talk for the night. We're going to be taking a short break. In the meantime, what you can do is you can enter the CCR code on screen. I'll be putting the CCR survey into the chat in just one sec. And I'll make sure to explain what CCR is for all those who do not know. Yes.
What's the CCR for?
One sec. I gotta post it. Alright, so the CCR form is in chat. If you don't know what CCR is, it's a thing here at Sheridan where each event you attend here, it's basically a record keeping track of that information. So when you're, say, looking for a co-op or a job, you have something to point to show you're an active participant here at ISSessions. So fill out that form and fill it out at all of our events. You'll tally your hours up, and then come April, I'll send you those hours. If you get 20, you can put a shiny member role on your CCR record over at Sheridan. So if you have any questions, reach out to me. We'll be back at 8:06. Good to go.
Okay, now the interrupts can hear me. Okay, cool. So this is my annual talk that I like to do for, especially for new students, but I do update it every year. So hopefully there's some new information for those of you who may have seen this talk before, and maybe just a little refresher for some of you as well. Of course, if I can figure out how to use a computer, that would help. So first things first, if you're new to the program, I might use words and terminology in the presentation that you're unfamiliar with. I do try to make sure that there's as little industry terminology as possible, but it is unavoidable to a certain extent. And I do want this to be as interactive as possible. So please ask questions at any point in time. Ask questions on Discord. I'm trying to keep an eye on it. Or if it's something you want to have a longer discussion, come talk to me after, ping me on Discord, whatever. I'm more than happy to talk to you guys. Okay, so who am I? So my name is John Simpson, also known as Thraki. So that's where you'll find me on Discord. I am taking a bit of a social media break, so you will at some point probably find me back on Twitter at Thraki as well. I graduated this program class of 2015. I'm currently a senior security researcher at Veracode. My InfoSec experience thus far has included some defensive and SOC type work. I did some pen testing and vulnerability assessments, and then I did over 5 years of vulnerability research. Previously, before that, I did lots of general IT work, a tiny bit of development work. And before that, I was a nationally ranked figure skater and coach. I am a fur parent to 2 cats and an absolutely bonkers corgi. You can follow me on Instagram if that's your thing. I am also motorcycle obsessed. Big fan of MotoGP and World Superbike racing. That's my motorcycle there. I just started riding this year, finally. And I recently found out I'm autistic and already knew I had ADHD. So I'm not necessarily annoyed with you, it's just that my facial expressions don't work properly, so keep that in mind. All right, so why are we here? Well, the industry is huge. We're just going to call it InfoSec for the rest of the presentation, for those of you not familiar with the term. When I first joined the program at Sheridan, I only really knew about ethical hacking as a possible career choice. And I didn't really know what it actually entailed in terms of like a day-to-day job. I had no idea. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through as much industry info as possible, potential employers, job roles, learning info, resources, and some non-technical career advice. And of course, as always, I will make the slides available once we're done here. Right, so in the past, I would usually kind of talk about this sort of thing much later in the talk, but before I like bombard you with crazy amounts of information, I want to kind of cover this one because I think it's really important, especially as we've kind of seen throughout the pandemic. This industry and this degree program are both mentally taxing and exhausting. Sustained levels of mental stress can and will lead to physical symptoms. Early in your career, it can be advantageous to do relevant stuff outside of work hours. But big warning, do not use your free time to learn things that are required for your job. If your employer is saying you need to learn this thing, they need to be paying you for that time, period. You know, even if you really love the work, you love the stuff you're learning, it's still going to put a strain on your brain, and you need to know kind of when to say no and when to say, you know what, this is a bit too much for me right now. And yeah, early career, you know, I would say if you are going to do things, you know, in your free time, these should be things that, say for example, if you're, you know, still working for your co-op employer, and you're like, well, this isn't really what I want to be doing long term, but what I really want to be doing needs some slightly different skills. It's okay to go in your own free time, go and develop some of those skills, and learn some of those things that you're not going to learn at your current job. That's where I kind of say it's okay. But again, if it's something for your employer, don't do it. Make sure you have adequate mental downtime. You will not be able to last in this industry if you don't keep an eye on that. And always remember, there's no normal journey. Some people take more than the standard amount of time to get through this program. Some people take, you know, X amount of years to get their first promotion. There is no normal. Everyone's journey is going to be a little different. Just do your own thing, and you know, first and foremost, take care of yourself. And there is definitely more to life than InfoSec and hacking. I know when you're in this program, it sometimes feels like there isn't anything outside of that because you don't have time for it, but try your best to make time for something outside of it. Your brain will thank you. And so it's really easy to be taken advantage of in this industry. Organizations may have all sorts of like unwritten expectations that go way beyond what they're paying you for. So I just want to share like a couple little red flags to watch out for as you start your journey. You know, this should be, I think, hopefully valuable for those of you kind of in co-op territory at the moment. So the company you work for will never love you back. They may tell you, oh, we're a family. You're not. They pay you, you do work for them. They make money from that work. That's the relationship, that's it. So don't let them use that whole like family guilt to overwork you and make you do more than what you're actually being paid to do. It's also, so if you're required to learn anything, as I kind of said, it should be paid time during standard work hours. This also applies to certifications. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But if your employer requires that you get a certification, they should be paying for the training and testing, and you should be given time during regular work hours to study and actually obtain that certification. Again, yeah, you shouldn't be working for free. Quiet quitting is bullshit. It's made up. It's ridiculous. The term, if you aren't familiar with it, it's something that kind of came out really recently, like in the last few months. Basically talks about only doing what you're paid to do at your job and not going and doing all these extra things. And again, it does not mean you're quitting. It means you're setting limits and you're trying to protect yourself. You're trying to take care of yourself. If a company thinks that you not giving them free labor means that you're silently wanting to quit, you should probably quit that job and go somewhere else. We shouldn't be competing with our coworkers. Encourage each other, be proud of their achievements. There may be like a limited number of promotions or a limited pool that raises will come from, but at the end of the day, if you have this, you're constantly at each other's throats and trying to like jump over each other, throw each other under the bus, that's just going to be an absolute nightmare. And again, you want to get the heck out of there. Mistakes are totally normal. You're going to make mistakes. I've made some pretty large ones. I made some pretty large ones on co-op. It happens. Main thing is own up to them. And again, if if people are afraid to come forward and say they made a mistake at a company, big red flag, keep an eye out for that. And you don't need to know everything. It is really easy to, go to conferences and see all these like brilliant people, and you're just like, man, I don't know anything. And that feeling won't go away. In fact, it only gets worse the longer you go, and you just have to accept it. That you know the things you know, other people know other things. That's why we share, that's why we have teammates, etc. All right, let's get into the real meat here. So there's a whole ton of different career options out there in terms of who you can work for. So one of the biggest, I guess, I would say employers of Sheridan grads is consulting firms. So this is generally going to be client-focused work. We're talking, for example, the big four firms like Deloitte, PwC, Ernst & Young, KPMG. There's lots of other general consulting firms that do InfoSec work, like MNP, for example. I know employs some grads, and there's boatloads of consulting companies out there. There's also going to be more like boutique InfoSec only firms like Security Compass, GoSecure, Mandiant, FireEye, a Google company, to name a few. And then there's going to be vendors, so security-specific vendors like Trend Micro, Symantec, FireEye. There's other vendors like Cisco. They're primarily a networking company, but they have a huge, huge line of security products that they sell too. In-house security teams. So security-related stuff for one company. This is something you would mostly do in larger organizations, since smaller ones don't have security teams. We're talking like telecom companies, banks, insurance, tech companies, etc. The smaller the organization, the more hats you're going to have to wear. In my pen testing days, there were companies where they didn't have a dedicated security team, and their IT team was like 10 people. So those general IT people had to be the security people. So that being a generalist is more important the smaller the organization is. Government, ISSessions, which is our CIA, CSE, which is our NSA, both constantly hiring all the time. You have to pass pretty extensive background checks, polygraph, etc. Military and police are also options in the government world. And not only that, in government there's also obviously every single government department that uses computers and stuff like that, like eHealth Ontario, for example, always needs security people all the time. Academia is also another path you can take. Masters and PhD are definitely an option. Tons of interesting stuff you can do. Beyond that, Sheridan, as an example, is constantly looking for experienced professors. And there's like endless research opportunities. As an example, Citizen Lab, that's based out of the U of T, does a lot of research on the intersection of human rights and security. You may know their name from a lot of the research that's been published when a dissident gets their phone hacked, for example. and they'll actually do a lot of like the deep down research to figure out kind of who likely perpetrated that and why. And another thing you can do is you can check out the Usenix series of conferences. They have a bunch of different conferences. They each have their own sort of theme, and they release all the papers and talks for those conferences for free. And you can just get an idea of like the wide range and variety of stuff that you can get into in that sort of research world. Okay, so enough about who you can work for. What kind of stuff can you do? So there's a lot of subfields. I'm not going to cover them all. Leslie Carhart, who is Hacks for Pancakes on Twitter, she has a pretty detailed rundown on her blog, and that's kind of where I pull some of this info from. We're going to follow her lead and split these into offense and defense. And as a disclaimer, both these roles I've never worked in. So I'm basically going on, what I know about the role, what other people have written about the role. So, take that with a grain of salt. All right, so the offensive side of security. We sometimes call this red team. It's a bit of a loaded term. People will argue with it till they're red in the face. If someone says red team, quite often they're just talking about like the offensive side of security. So the thing that kind of everyone thinks they want to get into, and I thought I wanted to get into, is penetration testing, also known as pen testing. So you're basically simulating a real attack on a well-defined target. This is known as the scope. You'd be doing this like consulting for clients or internal testing. Big companies like Amazon, for example, have internal red teams that are basically just trying to hack stuff all the time. You can be a general pen tester. So a lot of the consulting firms, you'll just kind of do whatever you're asked to do, whatever the clients want. And there's people who specialize. So especially with industrial control systems, people will be special pen testers. They'll work for companies that do industrial control pen testing. The day-to-day work can vary greatly. 1 week you might be doing, just a simple set of scans. The next week it might be like a no holds barred, do whatever you can to us kind of thing. And just about everything in between. It can also include physical security and social engineering. So if you struggle with just straight up lying to people as part of your job, that can be a struggle, seriously. What kind of skills do you require? Well, you need really broad knowledge of a lot of different things, because when you're on a pen test, you don't necessarily know what you're going to encounter. You need to be able to have a starting point in your head already to be able to kind of further your research. Problem solving is massive. Clear and direct communication, that's like, honestly, I probably should put that at the top. Because really, at the end of the day, the value that you're providing to a client, or if you're internal, the value that you're providing by working there is being able to communicate what you found, how you did it, how they might be able to fix it. And without that, pen testing is utterly pointless. So a few things to be aware of. If you're interested in getting into pen testing, just know that your testing scope is often going to be pretty limited and very strict. Like, you're not going to be able to just go in and throw a bunch of noisy scans around and just start like hacking into stuff randomly. It's going to be like, okay, you can go after this IP range. These are the types of things you can do. You may have to, communicate with the client before you attempt an exploit, for example, if you think something's vulnerable. There can be a lot of travel depending on the specific position, and you're going to be writing reports constantly, and you're going to deal with a lot of red tape from clients. That's just kind of the reality of how it goes. Sort of on the offensive side is vulnerability research. So vulnerability is a flaw in a piece of software that might allow an attacker to do something they're not supposed to do. There's, I would say like 3.5 different varieties of vulnerability research. So there's zero-day research, is where you're looking for new vulnerabilities. You're doing things like fuzzing. That's a really big part of it. Some people do just kind of read through code, looking for vulnerabilities. End-day research is understanding and figuring out how to exploit a reported and or known vulnerability. So we have a couple people that are on co-op right now that are currently doing that at Trend Micro, and that is where I used to work. Exploit development. So this is less about the vulnerabilities themselves and more about creating a functional exploit using vulnerabilities. And what I mean by functional exploit is that if I have a target like an iPhone, a functional exploit means that I basically am gaining full access to that device. It's not crashing when I try to exploit it. It works, I gain access to it, and done. And then there's also bug bounties. So you're hunting for vulnerabilities in a specific organization's applications or sites. Get into that in a bit more detail in a second here. Vulnerability research, like pen testing, is often specialized. In terms of the skills you need, a lot of software and networking fundamentals, and you have to have an intense desire to solve puzzles. Security vendors tend to employ the largest number of vulnerability researchers, like Trend Micro. There are some boutique firms that do like basically pure vuln research, or that's their primary focus, but they're very rare, and I don't think there's any in Canada to the best of my knowledge. But remote work is kind of the new normal, so you can kind of keep an eye out. Exodus Intel is one that actually kind of comes to mind there. There are ways to make money independently. You can sell zero-day vulnerabilities to organizations like Zero Day Initiative, which is a Trend Micro division. There's gray market vendors such as Rhodium. But the big thing is you need to be aware of what's going to happen with your vulnerability when selling it. So when you sell to gray market, and just a quick note about gray market, they usually need functional exploits. They don't just buy, I found this buffer overflow, but I can't like get a shell or anything on the target. They want full reliability, works like 99.9% of the time. But what happens when you sell it to them is you don't know. They cannot divulge who their clients are. They can't divulge what it's going to be used for. You basically just have to trust that the clients that they are selling that to, they are turning around and selling that to, are using it in a way that aligns with your personal morals. So be careful with that. Bug bounties. Legally hack participating, emphasis on participating, organizations and get paid if you find something of consequence. There's organizations that run their own programs, so like Microsoft, for example, runs their oown. Others use third parties like HackerOne and BugCrowd to facilitate. ZEI kind of falls into, sort of a bug bounty sort of thing, but bug bounty tends to refer more to typically like remote applications, web applications that you're testing, or like remote environments. Rule number one for bug bounty programs is don't be a jerk. There used to be a really awesome bugbounty.fail website that just had all sorts of like screenshots and links of just these awful interactions of people basically doing what's called like beg bounty, where it's basically like, I found that like you didn't set this flag on this cookie, please give me a bug bounty. That type of thing. Like completely inconsequential things. So yeah, don't do that, please. When submitting a bug bounty, ask yourself these things. Is there an actual security impact worth submitting? Is the bug in scope according to the terms of the bug bounty program? And can you provide clear guidance to reproduce the bug? So again, your ability to communicate what you found is paramount. And it's not easy to make a living on bug bounties alone in North America. Now this was from these are numbers from I think 2018 or 2019, but things really haven't changed. 97.5% of researchers on HackerOne have never sold a bug. 0.3%, which is about 1,000 researchers, have made $500 or more total. That's not, in a single bounty, that's total. And 0.03% have earned 100 grand total. And that's not talking about how long they've been on the platform, how many hours they put in to working those targets, right? So it's not easy. It really is like the Uber of, InfoSec. You often won't earn that much hourly for your effort. a big sort of caveat as well, bug bounty companies are loyal to their customers, not the bug hunters. So there's been, instances, a number of instances where, both BugCrowd and HackerOne will side with an organization over a researcher in case there's a dispute of some sort. And it can lead to a loss of bounty, which means you've wasted your time, or even more severe consequences like banning you from their platforms or even trying to sue you. So basically as soon as you report something through a bug bounty program, that is no longer your bug. You've now lost the rights to it, effectively. And so again, just be aware of these things, not solely to discourage people, but bug bounties can be exceptionally fun. But if you're trying to make a living off of it in North America in general, considering our cost of living, it is not easy. Okay, now to the other side of security. Defending. Blue team roles, you want to stop and find the bad guys. Security analyst is probably the most common entry-level role. You would typically work in what's called a security operations center or a SOC. This could be, again, in-house security team or for what's called a managed security services provider. A number of consulting firms provide this, where basically you're providing those security monitoring services for smaller companies that can't afford their own teams. What would you be doing? You're going to be monitoring security events. You're going to be responding to potential security incidents. And more experienced analysts get to do more advanced things like threat hunting. Maybe if you find a piece of malware on your network, you get to do a little malware reverse engineering. And you get to sort of generally contribute more to the overall security of the organization. What kind of skills? Basics in networking and operating systems, tiny bit of programming can often make your job easier. You may want to automate some things here and there, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily a heavy part of your job. Lots of patience. You can just be sitting there and nothing happens for hours, and then all of a sudden shit hits the fan and you have to go from 0 to 100 immediately. And work as quickly as possible. And again, rock solid communication skills. When something does happen, you need to be able to communicate the severity and really good details of what's going on or what you've seen. Just to be aware, entry level security analysts jobs often consist of shift work. And in general, defending is a really hard job. When you work in offensive security, you typically get this instant dopamine hit. As soon as you're successful, you get a shell, you figure out a vulnerability, you find a vulnerability. All these things are yes, I did the thing. It's that big signal, lights could be going off everywhere. But when you're a blue team, there's when you're defending, there's nothing to say well, it doesn't look like we've been hacked, but that means absolutely nothing. And in general, this is a starting point for a career. So if you are working as a security analyst, make sure that the company you're working for has a clear career path laid out for you, because you do not, maybe you do want to be a security analyst forever, that's fine, more power to you. But, in reality, I think most people would probably get quite bored if they were stuck as just a basic security analyst for more than a couple of years, I would say. Every company that has a security operations center is always hiring forever. You can also be a security engineer. So this is a little bit different from a security analyst. This is where you're more maintaining and administering all the security stuff. These are the people that keep a SOC running smoothly. This is what I did for a good chunk of my co-op term. More experienced security engineers become security architects, where you're kind of fitting all the pieces together and you're kind of designing the whole system and how all these different appliances work together, for example. This is very much sysadmin type work, but there is a lot of problem solving involved. In terms of skills, you probably need to know your way around a command line interface really well. You need a pretty deep knowledge on a variety of operating systems. Programming, again, will help a lot of automation, will make your life a lot easier. And occasionally you'll need tech-specific experience or certifications, say Cisco firewalls, for example. As Leslie does mention in her post that does talk about security engineer, try your best not to get locked in by only working with a single vendor's products, because it does limit, where that experience is valuable when you're moving on. If you really like being a security engineer, you're like, well, I'm kind of done here, I don't really like it here, and you want to move somewhere else. Well, if you only have experience with, that vendor's products, you're gonna have a hard time making an upward move when you try to make that switch to a new company. You might have to make more of a lateral move because your knowledge isn't 100% transferable to that new organization. If the company gets owned, they call in the Digital Forensics and Incident Response, DFIR, forensic analysts. So forensic analysts can be used to recover data to figure out how a device was compromised or abused, or they can do things like recovering evidence to be used in legal proceedings, like which is e-discovery. You use a lot of forensic-specific tools. There's a lot of tools that you really just won't see outside of the forensics world. Stuff like EnCase, for example. Consulting firms do provide this. Large organizations do have in-house forensics teams. Skills, extensive understanding of operating systems at a bare minimum. You also really need to understand how data is stored on disks and in memory. Because you're not always going to have like this nice, easy machine to pull data from. Disks might have issues, they might be failing, and you need to be able to extract as much information from that as you can, and you need to know a lot about how those things operate in order to be able to do that. I remember, the former program coordinator, Nick, and so he spent a long time in forensics, and I remember him telling a story about, I think he had to recover data off of like some storage media that hasn't been seen in like 20 years, and he had to like cobble together some wacky thing, and again, like this, and time was of the essence, so he had to just kind of figure this out on the fly. So if you're into that sort of thing, absolutely, this is a good place to be. And you need just boatloads of patience. There is a reason that most forensics teams have game consoles in their offices, and it's because they spend a lot of time just sitting there waiting for stuff to image, for example, or waiting for analysis to finish. If you love looking for needles in haystacks, this is your thing. There's also incident response. So incident responders, they figure out how to deal with an incident, help coordinate the resolution. You build a timeline of what happened, and your goal is to fully resolve the incident and determine all the effects, all the things that have happened as a part of that incident. You also have to coordinate the response with all relevant parties. And really, this is kind of the similar set of employers as forensic analysts. Again, I think Mandiant has always been kind of one of the famous, incident response companies that people bring in. Communication skills are the most important thing here, because time is of the essence. You don't know if that attacker is still in your network, you don't know where they are, you don't know the full extent, so you have to work quickly, and you need to be crystal clear in your communication. Does share some technical skills with forensic analysts. There's a lot of like memory analysis and that kind of stuff that goes on. A lot of operating system knowledge is also really helpful. And does require that you can kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together. You have to be able to like build this timeline accurately. And just to be aware, it can be very high stress, long and weird hours, because when an incident happens, your team, will potentially have to just keep working until it's done, sort of thing. And it often requires travel. The same does apply for forensic analysis. Again, resharing a little Nick story, he basically had to be flown to China with like 3 hours notice at one point, and he had to go in this like completely dark office where basically it was like a big acquisition was taking place or something, and they had to like grab a bunch of data to make sure that they didn't lie about some financial thing or some part of the company before the acquisition goes through. And so basically at the drop of a hat, he just had to up and fly to China, and then as soon as he was done, he flew back. So again, if you're interested in that work does exist. If you really love programming, but you like the security angle of programming, there's application security, also known as AppSec. The dev industry or the programming industry really needs programmers that understand secure coding. There's a difference between that. Knowing how to write secure code to me is just what programmers should know. That should be the default. I know it isn't always, but what I'm really talking about is people that understand, like, how do we develop an application entirely securely? So, you know, you're going to ensure that security is a consideration from start to finish. You may do things like review code directly. You may be reviewing processes. You may be performing and reviewing security scans on code. There's a whole bunch of different things. Basically, any organization that does development requires this. Not all of them know they require it, but they do. But, you know, so organizations that are actively, you know, thinking about security, you know, have some sort of AppSec people involved. There's AppSec vendors like Veracode, who I happen to work for. And AppSec vendors, in addition to, you know, making like AppSec products, a lot of them also do like AppSec consulting. So, you know, if you like that consulting side, you like working with clients, you like kind of helping them solve their problems, you know, again, there's certainly that angle. What kind of skills required? Programming, general development and software engineering skills. You know, the more knowledge you have of what goes on in development cycle is really important. You do need to have a pretty solid knowledge of vulnerabilities and exploitation. You don't need to be able to write some crazy like 20 vulnerability exploit chain or anything like that, but you need to at least know the basics when it comes to that. You pretty much have to know containers and orchestration, Dockers and Kubernetes these days. Continuous integration, continuous development, also known as CI/CD. Things like Jenkins, Travis CI, GitHub Actions, and cloud is really big too. So, you know, like at Veracode, we offer scanning, security scanning on like all sorts of different like cloud functions and stuff. Now, getting into kind of the less like nitty-gritty technical stuff, auditing and compliance. There's boatloads of work out there for this. You're there to basically ensure organizations are being compliant with whatever standards they're required to, whether it's privacy regulations like you know, PHIPAA for healthcare, payment processing, which is the PCI DSS, or like general security standards like you know, ISO 27001. Large businesses have internal people to handle this stuff. There's boatloads of consulting work. And in terms of skills, technical understanding is still important, but I say technical understanding. You're rarely going to be hands-on in that kind of a role, but when someone's telling you, okay, you know, what do you guys do for this? Or how do you guys handle this? You know, when they tell you, you need to understand what they're saying to you. Communication and report writing is really key. Again, I mean, this is super important in basically every role. And you need broad but not necessarily deep security knowledge. Again, you need to at least be able to understand the words that people are telling you when you're asking them about, you know, this thing so I can check off this box. All right, switching gears a little bit. So our industry struggles a lot in general with racial and gender diversity. All I can say about it is please treat. What?
Where the fuck is that even coming from?
Sorry, technical difficulties.
There was someone on the stream.
We're all getting that, I think.
Okay, and we're back. All right, so anyways, treat everyone with the utmost respect regardless of race, creed, religion, gender identification, sexual preference, ability, and also allow marginalized and underrepresented groups to have their own spaces and their own initiatives. So, like, the vast majority of the industry is people that look like me. Middle-class white dudes, straight white dudes, and so I personally don't have a really deep understanding of, you know, the challenges that, you know, BIPOC or, you know, LGBTQ people have when it comes to just existing in this industry. because literally just existing in this industry can be very challenging for them. As an outsider to any given group, the best thing you can do is just shut up and listen. Hear their stories, hear their experiences, and try to at least like absorb as much of that as possible, so you can at least empathize to a certain extent. I and much of the community have zero tolerance for sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, really any form of just blatant discrimination. If you do wander into any of the kind of general hacker InfoSec communities online, you will still often unfortunately encounter a lot of this, especially in the hacker communities. So yeah, just be aware. On top of that, you're really not going to find a lot of tolerance these days for stuff like men's rights activists, far-right conspiracy theories, or anti-science nonsense. Yeah, it just like it just doesn't really align with kind of the hacker ethos at all, which is really at the end of the day that we welcome anyone and everyone. Let your freak flag fly is, you know, kind of an important thing for us. And in general, just call out bad behavior when you see it. You don't have to get into like a big argument or anything. Just, you know, someone says something like really shitty, just be like, you know what, dude, like not cool to treat people like that. That's it. That's simple. Yeah, please don't get in fights over it. So that leads me into the importance of community. The vast majority of the people in our industry are really awesome, approachable people, like people that you're like, man, this person's a legend. You know, they'll never give me the time of day. Go and talk to them. They will. They like, people love to talk to new people and help people out. Make connections and learn by being on Twitter, Slack, Discord, whatever you can find. Obviously, our Discord is a good place to start, but there's lots more like general ones. We'll talk about that in a second. Conferences are a fantastic way to make connections. Yay, conferences are back, like actually back. So where do you start? Get on Twitter now. Just keep on it a few minutes a day. Twitter is legitimately the best place to be for like up to the second happenings in the industry. In vulnerability research, I relied on it. It was a crutch for me in terms of kind of knowing when something urgent happened, when someone dropped something. People would drop exploits on Twitter, like just straight up. Oh, I can fit this exploit in. What's the character limit now? 260? 280? I can drop this exploit in less than 280 characters, so up on Twitter you go. Here you go. So yeah, great place to be. If you are just getting started on InfoSec Twitter and you kind of want to, you know, get started with a good list of people to follow, I've created the InfoSec must follow list on the ISSessions Twitter account. So you can go check out that list, follow whoever you want on there. And again, use that as like a starting point. That's not the be all and end all. That's just like kind of get started, and from there, you know, you can build the list of people you follow. And you don't have to interact with people on Twitter. You can just use it as like a passive news feed. And that's honestly what I do the vast majority of the time. In terms of interacting with the community, reach out to people on Twitter for advice and mentorship. Participate in discussions when you feel comfortable, even if you just want to ask a clarifying question. Really, like, most importantly, be humble. You know, if you're in a discussion with someone, be open to the chance that you might be wrong. Just, you know, you probably are. And I'll even say this for myself. Like, if I'm, you know, talking with someone on Twitter about some exploit or something like that, and they say something and like it makes sense what they're saying, but I'm like, no, that can't be right. If I really go and look at it, yeah, I was wrong. Happens a lot. Don't use the community as your personal Google, please. Like, do some basic work on your own. Don't demand that people just spoon feed you everything. And yeah, don't demand things from people at all. Please don't try to prove other people wrong constantly or participate just to be critical of what they're saying. There are some fairly prominent people in our industry that are like that, and I just don't follow them. Also, please don't engage in user shaming. User shaming would be like if you're a doctor and someone comes in with some sort of like mystery illness, and as a doctor you're like, oh, I know exactly what this is. But you start making fun of them. You're just like, oh, you're so stupid. How could you not know what this is? They're not doctors. Just like users are not InfoSec people. They're not hackers. They don't understand this stuff. They shouldn't be expected to. Our job is to deal with the fact that they don't know these things. And one thing that drives me absolutely nuts, and a lot of people, don't complain when someone posts things on social media that isn't InfoSec related. It's their account. It's their choice. You don't have to follow them if you don't like it. And they're not obligated to post what you want. All right, being a good mentee. So a lot of industry professionals are happy to volunteer their time as a personal mentor. A few people on Twitter do regular threads to help link up mentors and mentees. Tanya Janka, She Hacks Purple on Twitter, often does this. So I feel like, I feel kind of lost just in general in the industry, and I'd really love someone, knowledgeable to kind of just, give me some advice from time to time. That's a great place to find someone to do that. If you do reach out to a mentor, be extremely respectful of their time. Again, that means like do a little bit of homework, before you start asking them questions. If you commit to doing something at the advice of your mentor, please follow through. And most importantly, don't be afraid to reach out to someone who's openly offering it. It's a little weird to see so many people kind of openly say, hey, I have this many years of experience in this thing. I'm open to mentoring, anyone who's interested in this particular field of InfoSec, and nobody responds. And then you have all these people that are kind of like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing here. The advice is there. It's available. There's lots of people to help. In terms of other places you can go other than Twitter, real-time chat platforms, Discord, I think we all know at this point. It really overtook Slack quite quickly just because it has moderation controls and all that kind of stuff. It's our comms platform of choice. If you're not on Discord, the invite link is on ISSessions.ca. And there's a lot of like general InfoSec and hacking Discords around that you can join. I'm not really on any at this point, but I'm sure people can share them in Discord if you're interested. Other chat platforms, Slack, some people still use it pretty extensively, and Matrix. So Matrix is like a modern replacement for the original chat, which is Internet Relay Chat. It's decentralized and supports really strong encrypted group and private chats. The main client is called Element. It has a web client, desktop, and mobile. The main drawback is there isn't a lot of good like general InfoSec discussion. Any like the cybersecurity channels that I've seen are mostly just trolling and garbage. So they're not really useful, like even to just lurk in. But again, your mileage may vary. You may find something that you're interested in there. We do have a Matrix server that is linked up to our Discord. You can join from any other Matrix server if you have an account on the main Matrix server. You can just browse rooms on suchsecurity.com, or you can also check the link on the ISSessions page to sign up for an account directly on the server if you want to do it that way. Now, keeping in mind that you will lose some functionality, like you can't join Discord voice calls from Matrix, but at the very least, the text chat all works and like stuff like reactions, etc. Blogs, boatloads of security blogs. Some are run by companies. They might have an agenda. You can also just check out the news channel in Discord, because we have a pretty decent feed going there. I think a good chunk of these are on there. Wired, Naked Security, The Hacker News, not to be confused with Hacker News, which is associated with Y Combinator, that whole incubator. Packetstorm Security, Register, Graham Cluley is an excellent blogger. Motherboard is also actually quite good, like Vice Motherboard. Yeah, lots of good stuff out there. Conferences. A lot of conferences are really expensive, like ridiculously expensive, thousands of dollars. They're intended typically for industry people who are being paid to attend. Some do provide student pricing or are generally inexpensive. In-person conferences are critical for meeting people, and you always learn something. Early career for me, some of the conferences that we went to, like Hackfest in Quebec City, were, I would say, really formative in terms of like, kind of showing me, you know, how many different things you could possibly do, and sort of some of the specifics. And there was so much information that was way over my head at these conferences, but we also met just like a ridiculous number of people. You make contacts that, you know, if by some chance you happen to apply at a company that, you know, a person you just one-off met at a conference, they'll remember you. They'll be like, oh yeah, we met at this conference. And that's an immediate connection that, you know, money can't buy. Local conferences. We have Sector in like a few weeks here. Sector is really Canada's, you know, Black Hat, essentially. It is actually run by the same organization that runs Black Hat. It's fairly pricey. They do have student pricing. And usually, between a few of us, we typically have a few free passes to go around. So just keep an eye on Discord for that, because that'll probably come up very shortly. And yeah, so if you're interested, just keep an eye out for that. Besides Toronto, to me, this is like, for a student, this is a no-brainer. You should go to this. This year it's October 8th, so it's coming up pretty quickly. Tickets are not on sale just yet, but keep an eye on the website, besidesto.ca. For ticket sales, it's inexpensive, usually costs like maybe $40, $50 tops. It's small, and it's a fantastic place to meet people. It's really tremendous for that, because you will meet people from kind of all levels of experience that you can talk to. Recon. Every June in Montreal is a like hardcore reverse engineering focused conference. I went once and my brain was melted by the end of it. It was intense. It was super cool. Like there were so many just brilliant people doing absolutely like just nutty things. There was a guy who was taking multi-layer circuit boards and basically set up this whole contraption to recreate all the traces on all the layers by like shaving it off from the side and then like taking a picture of the cross section. He'd shave off a tiny bit, take another picture, shave off another bit, take a tiny picture, and then he wrote some software to reconstruct the layout of the traces of every single layer based on those, you know, whatever 1,000 or 2,000 cross sections. And I was just like, I was in shock. I was just like, how? And he's like, oh, it's not perfect. I'm like, this, like, yeah, but that's the kind of stuff that you see at a conference like Recon. It is pretty pricey, but again, if that's your thing, like if you are doing vulnerability research at Trend Micro, that's the kind of place you want to be. Countermeasure in Ottawa, it's typically in November. It's a really corporate event. It's more of like an executive level type thing, and it's like crazy expensive. I think it's on the order of thousands typically. InfoSec in Montreal is another good like small conference, inexpensive to go to. There's a conference and there's a massive CTF. Like it's huge. We played as a team online a couple years ago, and it was super fun. It was the first CTF I had done in a long time. But the variety and like the amount of work that they put into putting on that CTF is incredible. So yeah, if you get the chance, check out InfoSec. Other major conferences outside of Canada. DEF CON, if you haven't heard of it, it's the biggest hacking convention in the world. So it is a hacking convention, not an InfoSec convention. And there is a distinction. There's a lot more shenanigans at hacking conventions. It's every August. You do need to go to this at least once. Of course, me saying this, I have yet to actually go, but I will go maybe this next year. Black Hat is also in Vegas the same week. It's more of corporate DEF CON, but again, similar kind of crowd to Sector, but there can be like a lot of like big impact talks at Black Hat every year. There's also B-Sides Las Vegas that's held during that time. It's a great alternative to Black Hat if you can get tickets for it because it's very small and tickets are limited. There's also a lot of other like sub-conferences that kind of go on all over the place. There's Diana Initiative. Tons and tons of stuff. Just, keep an eye on social media. But again, you should probably go at least once. And DEF CON, as long as you're okay with like the travel costs and stuff, and Vegas is not super expensive, then getting into DEF CON is not horrendously expensive either. Black Hat is pretty pricey, but DEF CON. DEF CON's usually like a cash-only affair, and it's like, what, like a few $100 typically for the whole weekend. But it's, you gotta go. Usenix conferences, I mentioned them before. There's a number of them throughout the year. They all have kind of different themes and stuff like that, and they release 100% of everything that's submitted to the conference. ShmooCon's still around? Maybe. I think probably. Pretty awesome con in January. Chaos Computer Club, basically DEF CON Europe. They also put on a big May Contain Hackers camp that they just held. They do that every 4 years. Like, it's like the Chaos Computer Club's World Cup, kind of. And it's just like this giant campground, and there's all sorts of crazy stuff. This year I saw it was a cell phone ringer hooked up to a flamethrower. So they had this area all roped off, and yeah, you could just call this phone, and when you called it, it would ring, and this flamethrower would just go off. Why? I don't know, but it's cool. Yeah, there's a boatload of conferences. There's a major conference basically every week worldwide, and a lot of conferences like Recon, for example, have kind of specialized purposes. Other learning resources, yeah, most of those talks become freely available eventually. Black Hat, there's quite a delay, but DEF CON, again, same thing. They release all of them. Online CTFs. So if you don't know what CTFs are basically just little hacker puzzles that you can do. You get points, you try and find a flag, and it's a whole lot of fun. Ring0ctf.com and overthewire.org are great places to start. New people, if you're just first year, go try Bandit on Over the Wire. It'll also really help you with your Linux command line skills, big time. Hack the Box. Used to be kind of a little sort of, fun little platform, and it's now grown into this giant behemoth of a training platform, but still has its roots of being, really CTF style, where you're trying to basically hack into various boxes that have a specific sort of challenge set up. And you can also check out ctftime.org for info on time-limited CTF competitions, get together with some friends, play as a team. It's a lot of fun. In-person CTFs, as I mentioned, InfoSec Montreal, when we can have them again, we can have them again now. Can you tell I reused some slides? And the Sheridan CTF, which is coming up in January. Ooh, early this year. So yeah, don't miss that. It's super fun. More learning. So when it comes to learning, people say, oh, I'm sure you've seen people on Reddit or something like that. How do I hack? I don't know. So when you want to learn something, you need to kind of be a bit specific with the topic that you want to learn. There's really no single place to just learn everything. There's certain sites and certain resources that are better for learning certain things. Ask in Discord, Twitter, etc. for recommendations. There's boatloads of books, every topic you could imagine. Ask if you're looking for something on a particular topic. I think you guys have access to Safari books, Books 24/7, whatever the heck it's called now, O'Reilly books. You guys have access to something that has a boatload of books through, is it Books 24/7 still? Okay. But yeah, anyways, so there's almost all the technical books you could really think of are likely in there. But if you like buying books, keep an eye on Humble Book Bundles. There's lots of programming and security related book bundles. Just be aware of who the publisher is, because some of them are shit. I think most of the PACT, P-A-C-K-T publisher ones are not worth it. But whenever No Starch Press does a bundle of any sort, whether it's programming or security, get it, it's awesome. And some of your textbooks actually are potentially useful for a really long time. I have gone and referenced the operating system design textbook in my vulnerability research time. Certifications. That's what everyone's always interested in. Everyone loves to ask about certifications. So if you're new, you're going to learn about all these different certifications. If you're on LinkedIn, adding, industry people, some of these people have like 80 certifications on their attached to their name. It's ridiculous. Don't worry about certifications at all until you're actually in the industry. Like, just don't ignore them. Forget they exist, please. Most of them are very expensive. Entry-level jobs do not expect certifications, and many employers are going to pay for certifications if you present a good business use case. So if it's relevant to the work you do at all, you can get it paid for. And some organizations actually require or strongly desire that you get a specific certification. So if you're in consulting, CISSP certification is almost a given. Deloitte, for example, has like weekend boot camps to basically get you to be able to pass a CISSP once you have the prerequisite experience under your belt. So my opinion on certs is the purpose really is twofold. It's to look at the clients if you're in a client-facing role, and it's to look at to prospective future employers looking for experienced hires. So it can help you get past like the HR firewall, so to speak. But outside of that, you know, some of the certs may actually teach you something, but don't expect that you're going to all of a sudden, after obtaining a cert, that you're going to be really truly an expert in that particular area. Because in reality, most people are studying to pass the test, and that's about it. There are exceptions to that. So any of the offensive security certifications, like the OSCP or OSCE, are a really good example of certs that will force you to learn a lot of useful new stuff. The CEH, or Certified Ethical Hacker, is a really good counterexample. Avoid it like the plague. And the reason for that is that the company that makes CEH is, it's well documented that they have been plagiarizing for many, many years, have been caught and continue to do it. And on top of that, they are openly sexist and double down on it all the time. And people have, you know, prominent people in the industry have tried to give them the benefit of the doubt and work with them, and, you know, they apologize for something, and they say, okay, so like I'll work with you just to help you kind of like remedy this, and they never change. So please stay away from them. I actually, sorry.
I was like, not to mention their exams like garbage.
Well, yeah, and on top of that, you know, are you really a certified ethical hacker because you passed a factually suspect multiple choice exam? I would say no. And in fact, honestly, you know, when I was in a position where I was involved in hiring, I'll be honest, and you know, it's probably not a good thing, but if I saw someone put CEH on their resume, that was like a couple points going down in my head right away, immediately. Because I'm just like, oh, like maybe you had to get it, your employer wanted you to, but like, you know, you're applying for like an intense vulnerability research job. Don't admit you have that, please. Just don't do it. In terms of career progression, your first industry job, again, if you're, you know, if you're early, that's okay. Echo. What's on? Your first industry job, don't worry about it yet. Unless you're in co-op, then, I mean, you're kind of in the midst of that, and you should probably worry because, well, it's your job. But yeah, if you're like first, second year, don't even worry about it. You have a mandatory 8-month co-op between third and fourth year, which, as I said, some people are you know, kind of in the middle of. As long as you work hard during co-op, again, you don't have to be perfect, you don't have to be brilliant, you don't have to like be the best person they've ever seen. You will generally have a job waiting for you once you're done school. They really just want reliable people that are willing to learn and work hard. That's it. And this is by far the easiest way to jumpstart your career. You know, you may know already that your co-op employer is not where you want to be over the long term, but as long as you can tolerate it for like, you know, a total of 2 years, including your co-op, you have that experience on your resume. No one can take that away from you, and then you can pivot very easily to something else, entry-ish level, not fully entry level because you have some experience, that's more aligned with your interests. And if you do have connections, use them. Why not? It will work, trust me. In terms of early career progression, in terms of like things you should learn, your knowledge should be broad first. If there's things that you're like, I'm super interested in this, you can go deep on those, but don't ignore the breadth of knowledge. It's easier and faster to learn about something when you have kind of just that base level of knowledge, and then you can go deep as necessary. And early career interviews are a lot of like really general questions typically. So like co-op interviews, a lot of them it's like, you know, networking and, you know, like security trivia almost to a certain extent. And the other thing for you know, keeping your knowledge broad early on is you prevent yourself from getting stuck doing something you don't really like. You may in your head already think like I did, oh, I want to do pen testing, that's the only thing I want to do, that's all I'm interested in. But then you go and do it and you realize, this isn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. So, you know, if you've put all of your time and effort into just that, you're now going to have all this extra work to do to kind of pivot to something entirely different. And there are some career paths, honestly, that are really ideal for generalists. So where it's that you need to have a basic knowledge of a lot of things and also have the ability, you know, to go deep on a particular thing when necessary. In terms of the program, if you weren't already aware, I heard some rumblings over a math quiz. This program is rigorous and challenging. Don't let the fact that you're at Sheridan and not somewhere super prestigious like U of T or Waterloo fool you into being complacent in your studies. This program really truly does require full-time job hours, and what I mean by that is when you combine like your in-class time as well as your classwork and study and reading time, you really should be probably putting in, I would say, on the order of like 40 hours. In your non-class time, you know, find classmates to study with, share knowledge, read ahead. You know, if you can teach each other things, you will retain them better yourself. Read ahead when possible, because things will make a lot more sense in lectures. Even if you read it and you're like, I understand about 10% of this, when you go and you actually are in that lecture, it's all going to start making way more sense, way faster. And I'm going to say this, and you're all going to ignore it, and I ignore it. Don't leave anything to the last minute. It'll bite you in the ass. Something will go wrong. You will think, you know what, this programming assignment is so easy. I can definitely do this like the hour before I have to submit it. And then all of a sudden, like, your IDE is broken, or you know, the compiler won't work, or your whole environment's screwed up, or your computer fails, etc. So try not to do that. Your reputation. Very small community, InfoSec. Sheridan alumni especially, or people who know Sheridan alumni, are basically everywhere. The reputation you create for yourself in school will follow you for a long time. So again, you know, when I was hiring, you know, if you see someone from Sheridan, honestly, it's not challenging to get multiple opinions on that person very quickly. So, you know, if you have a reputation for working your ass off, you know, I would say that's probably more valuable than, you know, having like a 4.0 GPA. I mean, sure, shoot for both, but as long as you know, you show work ethic and a desire to learn, that'll take you really far. So that whole diversity thing, in my experience, we tend to have pretty decent racial diversity compared to, say, like a Silicon Valley startup. The Toronto tech scene in general is actually pretty decent this way. But we do have serious issues with gender diversity, as I'm sure you've noticed if you look around the room. And unfortunately, this sometimes has led to some less than awesome treatment of our female colleagues. InfoSec is not Tinder. Please don't use it as such. Men outnumber everyone else by a significant margin. There have been several cases in the past of excessive unwanted attention towards women in the program. If a classmate rejects your romantic advances or seems horribly uncomfortable, please apologize and just leave them the hell alone. And I also love this tweet from TinkerSec, who for some reason is not on that InfoSec list, but probably should be. We learn a lot of very powerful things in this industry. We learn a lot of information that if used in the wrong way, can be rather dangerous. So, please hold yourself to a certain level of moral standards in terms of, what you do with the power you gain. And yeah, this tweet from Tinker, I think, really sums it up really well. Don't con your family. So, if you become really good at social engineering through your pen testing, just don't use that on other people. If you're really good at open source intelligence, seeing some random picture and then being able to find the exact street that is on, based on some weird piece in the background, please don't use that to stalk your love interests. And when you go to a conference, don't hack the venue. Just so thanks for listening to me ramble. And again, if you have any questions at all, you want advice, you want like more pictures of my dog, don't reach out to me on Twitter because I won't reply, because I'm not really paying attention to it right now. But yeah, ping me on Discord and I'll definitely respond.
Thank you, John, for delivering that presentation, and thank you everybody for coming out to the first in-person ISSessions meeting in 2 years. I hope you enjoyed it, and most of all, I hope to keep seeing you around. Before we go though, there's a certain event coming up you might have heard of called CyberSci, and there's a certain someone who's here to talk about it for a little bit.
Let's go. Oh, yes. Hello. Okay, so my name is Connor. I'm actually not an exec this year. Last year I was doing Mr. Sean's job. I was the CTF coordinator. But so I just want to talk about, there is a very cool event coming up in November called CyberSci, that it's a big nationwide CTF, or Capture the Flag event, which John talked about a little bit. So they're just very basic, security themed challenges, some programming stuff, some hacking stuff. And Sheridan is allowed to send 2 teams to the Toronto regional event. So once again, this is in November, and each team is allowed to have 4 members. So we are going to be opening up applications if anybody is interested. And I do really want to stress, don't feel like that you shouldn't apply because you think you're unqualified or you don't know enough. So there are actually a few important changes to the team formation this year, where each team is actually required to have 1 member that is age 20 or younger as of December 2023, which is next year. So basically, if you came in fresh out of high school, you're in first or second year right now, you should probably qualify for that, maybe depending on your age. But so each team has to have at least 1 person like that. So if you are younger, please apply, because we literally need you, even if you feel like you're unqualified. Additionally, so normally teams are only allowed to have 4 members, but teams are allowed to have 5 members in the circumstance where one of their members identifies as either a female or as an indigenous person. So if you are one of those communities, or if you know anybody in our program that is part of one of those communities, please ask them to apply. Please, once again, we need you, and we really want to be very inclusive towards these people. So that link is going to be going up probably tonight or maybe tomorrow, but keep a lookout for it. And if you have any questions, you can always message me on Discord.
Did they get rid of the upper age limit?
That's a good point that I forgot to mention. Thank you, John. So this part is outside of my control, unfortunately. This is just a rule that they enforce on us, and it's actually enforced all the way from the international level. You have to be below the age of 25 or younger to participate. It's just an unfortunate thing that the international organization forces on us. It's really lame, but it's the way it is. So yeah, once again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me though. Thank you very much.
And with that, I think we're ready to call it a night.